Now before I show you what a query wizard is, first of all, what's a query and why would I want to use it? Well, a query, to oversimplify, is a way to extract information from your tables here, all that needs to be seen, not that could be seen. Because, for example, if I open up my computers table, do I need to always see every single field here? Not in my case. There may be a time where I just want to pull up the asset tag, the date received, and the purchase price, and I don't need to see the other fields. You can imagine if I had dozens of fields here, dozens of columns, and tens of thousands of records, that every time I pull up the computers, my system's going to slow down a bit while it tries to pull it all in. Or at the very least, it'll slow me down, because if I just want to see those three fields, do I go ahead and redesign this table and move the purchase price next to the asset tag, especially if the purchase price was on column like 30, instead of scrolling over and then scrolling back? Well, that could work that instance, but I don't think you want to keep changing it, going, okay, now I need to see this field over next to this field, and keep redesigning it. I mean, that's a waste. So go ahead and create a query and just pull in those fields that you want to see. Now that's just to get started. I mean, a query can do so much more, as we'll cover in the next couple of training videos. For instance, if that's not a selling point for you to why you may want to use the query, let's say that I want to go ahead and be able to see, again, these three fields, but also the manufacturer's name. Well, to see that, you would say I'd have to open up the manufacturer's table. No, you can actually create a query and be able to pull up the manufacturer's name. Now, of course, these tables have to be related, either directly or indirectly. How do I know that they're related? The simplest way to find out is to come up here on the Database Tools tab and clicking on the Relationships button here. And you can see that the tables are related with that line there. In this case, we've got a one-to-many relationship. So whenever I enter in computers, I have to pull the manufacturer ID or look it up and see if it's available in the manufacturer's table. If not, this is where we create it. Okay? So always in a one-to-many relationship, you have to create it in the one table so it's available and can be duplicated if, in this case, we purchased more than one computer from the same manufacturer. So there's the direct relationship. It's related, so I can go ahead and pull up the fields here and pull, in this case, the manufacturer's name over here, and not have to pull in the manufacturer's ID because I don't need to see that field. Indirectly, I could also pull up fields from the computers and the departments because, metaphorically speaking, the only way that I know Bob is through Susie here, or I know departments is through the employees. So what's a good example? Well, let's say that it's that time of year where I've got some funds that I can replace a bunch of computers. I would like to go ahead and find the department, there's the department name, that has the oldest computers, the date received. So I can pull in those two fields, find out the oldest date received, which department that's tied to, and give them the new computers. Now that we know that these two tables are related, computers and manufacturers, let's go ahead and close out of the relationships. And I'm just going to pull up the manufacturer's name and the asset tag, date received, and purchase price. I'll right-click on one of the tabs and close all. And so to create a query, the operative word being create, come up here and click on the, there it is, create tab, and go to the queries group and click on the query wizard. Microsoft has what are called wizards in most of their programs. And a wizard gives you a little pop-up window with a bunch of steps that you go through where it asks you a bunch of questions, you give it the answer, and then through all that, the wizard will create something that hopefully you'll find of use. In this case, we want a simple query. Let's go ahead and click OK. Here's the first step in the wizard. It says, okay, which table or queries, because we can also pull in data or fields from queries, but when you click on the drop-down arrow, you can see all that I have are tables. No queries yet, but we're going to create one. So remember, I want to pull the fields in from my computers table. So it lists down below all the fields available in the computers table, and then I need to select which fields that I'd like to see in my query. Well, I want to see the asset tag. You can select it, hit the arrow to add it over as one of the selections, or you can double-click to add it. To remove it, you can double-click. To add all of them, click the double arrows, of course, to remove them. Asset tag, date received, and double-click on purchase price. Okay, and then I also want to add from a related table, the manufacturer's table related to computers, the manufacturer's name. Now you could look at this and go, hey, wait a second, you're not adding the manufacturer ID. Again, this is only the fields that you want to view. Behind the scenes, Access still knows that they're linked up, so because you don't add the manufacturer ID, the foreign key in this table, or the primary key in the next table down here, which is going to be manufacturers, just want the name, not the primary key. If you don't add that, it's not going to fall apart. It'll keep the link behind the scenes. This is just what we want to view, okay? So we have fields from two different tables, the computers table and then the manufacturer. Click Next, and then it says, would you like a detail or summary query? The detail you can see over in the preview pane, gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. It'll show every field of every record. I mean, that's obvious. It says it right there. And if you notice, we've got one record, AA, AA, and then from another table, another record. They're all unique records, 1, 2, 3, but if I go to summary, then what it wants to do is it says, okay, of the fields that contain numbers, if there's some commonality, I can go ahead and summarize that. So let's say from these departments, if these are computers that are assigned to each department in this table, I can go ahead and summarize 5 plus 7 equals 12. We'll learn about that in another training video, so to keep it simple, we'll go back to details. We'll show everything, okay? Click Next, and then it says, what title do you want for your query? Well, let's go ahead and delete the 3-letter prefix because it's not a table, it's a query, so QRY is query about computers. Let me double click and select query. I mean, I don't need query computers query. So before I click finish, you can see you can open up the query to view the information in Datasheet View, or you can go to the design view and modify it a bit more. Now remember, the only two objects of the 4 that we talked about, tables, queries, forms, and reports, only tables and queries have the datasheet view. So let's go ahead and just open this query up, click finish, and there we go. It just pulled in those fields that I wanted, the asset tag, date received, purchase price, and the manufacturer. Now let's see if this kept it together. I've got the manufacturer global, okay, and it's tied to the asset tag 2011. Let's open up the computers. Let's go down here, 2011, and it's got the manufacturer ID 1. So if I open up the manufacturers, 1 is global. So back to the query, it's global, it all ties it together. Neat. So I don't have to pull in the manufacturer's ID, I can just say, just give me the name from these two tables that related. These 3 fields from the computers, that one from the manufacturers. So you see how the query looks exactly the same, the datasheet view, as the datasheet view in the other tables. It's just that with a query, we can filter in what we want to see in more ways than one. Here's just a sample here, pulling in just the fields. If I want to go ahead and make any changes to my query, in other words, design it, well, let's see what the design view looks like. I can either come up here and, well, where's my design view? Well, I'm not on the Home tab. Click on that. There's the Design View button. You can click on that, or you can right-click on it and go down to Design View. You've got 2 sections here. Up at the top, you have a list of all the tables that contributed fields to this query. There they are. The computers table, manufacturers. Of course, if you can't see it, I don't want to scroll, so just hover over the border of the table until your pointer turns into arrows pointing in opposite directions, then just click and drag to stretch it open. Nice, okay. So you've got the computers table, and then we have the manufacturers. It lists all the fields, but in our query, it only pulled out the fields that we wanted to see through the query wizard. We said we just wanted to see the asset tag, date received, and purchase price. But nonetheless, in Design View, you can later say, oh, wait a second, I want the manufacturer ID, or I want the warranty. And I'll show you how to design your query from scratch. But in any case, you can see that up at the top we got the tables. Down below in the grid, we have a list of all the fields from the different tables. You've got the asset tag, date received, purchase price, then it has the table it's being pulled from, then the manufacturers being pulled from the manufacturer's table, and then of course our relationship. It shows you that little joint. It doesn't have the fancy one-to-many or many-to-one in here. In the query it just says, hey look, we're linked, and I'll cover this later on about that, what's called a join. It's joining these 2 tables. As long as you've got your tables related in the relationships window, again, database, tools to relationships, manufacturers to computers, let me close out. In the query, it'll show a little what's called a join. We'll cover this in a later training video, but to get back to my datasheet view, come up here, click on the datasheet view button, and there we go. Congratulations, we created our first simple query. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.